Hello, this is Arkeem Ra. I'm here with John Whitberg. How are you doing today, John?
I'm doing all right, kind of getting over a sickness. I won't say what it is because it's a bit personal, but uh
Getting over an illness.
yeah.
Um, this is disclosure now, by the way. I should have announced that. We're doing a show today that I've been putting off for a long time because I wanted to pull it off really well and do it correctly, but I'm realizing like I just can't put it off anymore because there's just a lot of problems happening right now that need to be addressed. And so I guess this is the show today where we maybe upset some people, but that's not the goal. That's not the intended goal. The intended goal of the show is actually to highlight the issue that kind of is the agenda, right? That's going on is this agenda of division, to divide
Yep.
people. So where do you think we could even start? Um, there's so much stuff to address. Um, I guess a
QAnon.
good point. QAnon. Okay, what would you like to say about QAnon?
I'd like to say I fell for it too for a little bit, but I'd like to point out to people, okay, first of all, do you really think that it's only one party in this country that is evil and corrupt? If that's the case, then why isn't half the country good? First of all, why is all of it bad? And second of all, uh why have none of their predictions come true?
Yeah,
I'd
there's a lot of
I'd
false
like
predictions.
I'd like to point that out. None of their predictions have come true. So just I can understand where you're coming from, and there is of course a basis of truth as there is to most quote unquote conspiracy theories. Like there really is ritual abuse of children going on. We know that. There really is huge amounts of sex trafficking, we know that, and other forms of human trafficking and all of that. But like
It
there's
really is a satanic cabal, and
yes, there
they really are after uh, something that's similar to Google search engine name, and that there's a lot of truth behind some of the stuff they say.
yeah.
So some of it's both exaggerated and also put into it's manipulated truth, right?
It's
Some
politicized truth. It-
politicized truth.
yeah.
That'd be another way to put it. And an interesting thing with I know a lot of people uh out there think that Joe Biden stole the election. Uh I personally don't think it really matters. I think that all the elections are engineered.
Hmm.
Um so I do think that you probably was, stolen election because they all are. But I would say that it is interesting to look at the connection between Cambridge Analytica, the company that is manipulating social media, Facebook in particular, and how they're connected to the evangelical churches and
Yeah.
the rise of Trumpism and the rise of Trump nationalism, make America great again, which
Yeah.
I can
Also,
understand why a lot of people in this community and the truther SSB community gravitate towards him, uh, because he's done some things that are unprecedented, that haven't ever been done before when it comes to for creating the space force. There's some patents that he disclosed, and he also came out about the deep state existing, stuff like that. But I also think that the whole thing that QAnon type people that are into that are addressing that is on point is the celebrity worship is really bad. Like we can't be worshiping celebrities, we can't be putting them on a pedestal, and that's kind of what Trump is. And I find it really ironic. And my whole thing is he's just a tool. He's a public servant. You should use him like a public, like any president. You should hold them accountable and try to have them be a public servant. And when
Yeah.
we put them on the celebrity status pedestal, it makes it hard to hold them accountable as a public servant. That's my whole opinion on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think, look, politicians are employees of the people, and what you do to employees when they don't do their jobs, you fire them. And I think this is a whole side thing. I think as a country, we need to relearn how to do that in general. Like, we need to stop being so complacent. I'm sorry, I don't want to go on this rant, but
This is a time for rants. It's okay.
okay. Like, we need to stop accepting bullshit done by politicians that we don't agree with. We need to start, like, people protesting. We need to start making demands. Look at what they do in France when a politician does something they don't like. They go out and they riot. They literally go out and riot.
People in this community who think that when Americans do that, we do it for the wrong reasons or whatever, and or it's manufactured, which I don't know, maybe some of the rioting is, but I mean, the whole idea that you should only peacefully protest is a little bit ridiculous. Sometimes there's a time to, sometimes our voices aren't going to be heard if all we're going to do is speak. Sometimes it takes action.
Yeah, look,
and that's something that people sort of seem to have forgotten, and we sort of
people,
seem to have a hands-off approach with the world around us, and that's where a lot of it starts. I think is the fact that we're so disconnected from the world we live in and each other. We don't know where half of our food comes from, stuff like that. It doesn't help the issue at all.
and people in this country never got their rights by peacefully protesting. There was a civil war to end slavery. There was the civil rights movement had terrorists, okay? Like,
Yeah, it
there
wasn't all just
was
Martin Luther King marching down the street peacefully.
no,
That idea is bunk. It's
yeah,
false.
they
The
murdered
Black Panthers
people.
are a thing, people.
They murdered people. They blew up churches. They did insane shit. Like, and
That's
that's
what I'm saying. People should do
yeah.
that, but
No, no, of course not. But like, just keep in mind, like,
yeah, and well, what happened there? John Whitberg, where'd you go? Hopefully he comes back. Um, so yeah, I guess are you back? Okay.
yeah,
So yeah, another thing that I want to bring up. Okay, so I know the Trump thing is like a touchy subject in this community, but like I really don't. I never liked the guy. He gives me bad vibes, and I always trust my gut feeling.
mhm,
I look at him as a con man and a villain,
mhm,
and I don't want to. I don't. I want people to. I want to make it perfectly clear to my audience that I'm not a Trumper.
mhm. Me
He's not
too.
a good guy just because he doesn't eat babies. Is the bar really that low? Like, people, come on, like, because he's not in the adrenochrome party, which who knows if he even isn't. People assume that he isn't, and he's trying to take that down. But I just think the bar is too low there. That's my
Yeah,
opinion on it.
I agree.
And if we can use them as a tool to get truth out, great. But that's my opinion on it. I don't trust the guy. I don't think people particularly should trust the guy. But
Mhm,
is he better than the Clintons and the fucking shit they got going on? Now that I know more, yeah, I can understand why people kind of gravitated towards them, because the Clintons are, and what they're connected to, the Bushes, all that. It's extremely fucked up. But
mhm.
he's connected to Pence, and that's a whole other thing. He's part of the whole thing, the whole club.
Yeah,
The Pence family is part of the whole. We know this from people's testimonies and what people have seen in the programs. The Pences are a part of it, and that was his vice president.
yeah,
So that's also another thing that raises a red flag for me. I just think that's what's going on with this Cambridge Analytica and the rise of Trump. What it is it's polarization. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it so that there's, because you've seen it with COVID, and you've seen it with just the past 5-6 years. It's just like people have become more and more polarized. People have become less and less likely to get along, and more likely to be at ends with each other. And when you have that kind of destabilized environment, it makes it really hard to actually hold anybody accountable, especially when there's all this sort of blameless and misplaced finger pointing going on. Like, I think like the left thinks that the right is all bigoted, transphobic, hateful people, which isn't necessarily true. Just like the left isn't all people that want to turn your kids into trans kids, and they're all pedophiles too and all that. That's not true either.
Yeah.
I think what it is they're taking issues that are complicated and multifaceted and have a lot going on that you could talk about and address it for hours because they're so complicated, and they're trying to make them into clickbait talking points that sell, that get people upset, that people will click on it and they'll go down that rabbit hole. They'll read that article because the headline upsets them, so they're like, what, and what they're doing is it's a manipulation of the masses. They're trying to upset people. They're trying to get us at ends with each other. And I think a big red flag for that whole manipulation agenda that I see in the SSP community is how trans people, particularly trans people, but gay people in general, the queer community in general, are being treated. You see these very clickbaity articles about trans people, about drag queens and book readings and all this stuff, which I think that a lot of these things are overblown or manufactured, because there is weird stuff going on. I've seen some of the weird videos where it's like there are things happening that's not okay. Kids shouldn't be in sexual environments where like certain things are happening. And I just think that the whole idea that it's only queer people doing that is very stupid, because we all know that like child beauty pageants and stuff like that exist. So that whole problem is not a queer or straight people thing. It's just a problem that neither community is actually, like, you can't say all gay people have some sort of, or all trans people have some sort of pedophilic thing going on. Same thing with all straight people. You can't do that. You can't throw people into those boxes. And the way I'm seeing trans people in particular and the LGBTQ community being othered right now, it harkens like the way that you'd other like Nazis would other the Jews or something. Like people are acting like these people shouldn't be allowed to exist. Like they don't have the right to exist, and them existing is dangerous. And that freaks me the fuck out. And I want to make it perfectly clear on the show that there's a lot of assets who have problems with gender dysphoria, problems with wanting to wear clothing of the well, not, I shouldn't call it a problem, but they want to experiment with their gender, and they're confused about it, and they have the way they approach it is maybe different than a normal person would approach it, because they've been a woman how many times or a man how many times, and they're in the opposite body. And the idea that it's satanic inversion, because we all know that the satanists, the satanic cabal, they do like to invert things. The idea that all trans people are that is very detrimental and very, very bigoted and very prejudiced. And know thyself is so important. And I think the idea that other people know, you can say what another person is and how they should approach their world better than they can, I don't think that's good. And I think the sign of a healthy society, which we don't see right now, is when different groups that don't get necessarily, they're not very different, they don't have the same values, they believe in different things, but they can get along and live alongside each other. I think that's the sign of a healthy society. That's when people are happy. That's when things are thriving. And what we have right now is we have this whole fear mongering and trying to get us to think that different groups are, it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
You have something to add to that? I know I kind of just went off for a minute there.
It's okay. Just well, now I forgot what it was. I really need to start writing things down before we do these things, because like
And I know people are also uncomfortable with some of the things that are happening in schools. They're saying that they're really
Yeah.
pushing this whole transgender thing on kids. I understand where you're coming from, but I also do think that there are going to be kids out there that are trans. Is
Yeah.
it being pushed? Are there going to be kids that are going along with kind of like a trend? Yeah, that probably is happening too right now. But at the same time, trans people have always existed. There was a transgender pharaoh. We can't erase this community. We can't act like they don't exist. That's wrong. And I want to make that perfectly clear. I have many trans friends. I grew up in a punk rock kind of background. I was a hitchhiker traveler. I have trans friends, and I can tell you that they're not all part of the satanic cabal. And after your kids, they're all very good people, and I love them a lot. And I feel like that's why I really need to say that on the show. It's like I'm not
Yeah.
about it. I'm not about othering these people. And I also want to say that John Whitberg and I think I can speak for you when we say that we understand that there are transgender people out there that are assets, that are confused, that are looking for help, and they're probably going into the community the same way I did, finding people on Facebook and then seeing some of these memes and some of these hateful things and feeling like they're not welcome in this community and they're not allowed. And I want to say that's not true. You are welcome in this community. Even the people that are maybe being a bit judgmental or being not cool right now, frankly, I'm trying to be polite about it. I think there's a lot of people who eventually will understand that is what the agenda is. It's the division. It's not trans people. It's you making you think that there's some sort of enemy so that you focus on that instead of the people at top, the cabal, which
Yeah.
that is a problem and that's a real thing. And we do have to take care of that. And yes, are they Trojan horsing? They've been doing it forever. They'll Trojan
Yeah.
horse bad things or nefarious things into things that are perfectly just they're funding the schools, they're funding newspapers and all this stuff. So of course they'll use
And
issues to distort things and make them the way they want them to be. And
yeah, and they're part of the reason the Republican Party has chosen this, I'm pretty sure, is to cover for themselves, because I think at least some of these people who are against all this are genuinely against pedophilia. Okay, so if you're against pedophilia, you'd be against child marriages, right? Where did child
yeah,
marriage happen? Republican states. Not Democrat states, Republican states are the places where child marriages are still legal. So,
yeah, and that's it's just we have a bias going on where this is where I'm at. Um I can only speak plainly. Fuck Joe Biden, fuck Obama, fuck Trump, fuck the Bushes, fuck them all. Why would you worship any of these people? Why would you trust any of these? Look, everybody in this community knows no one's gonna do it for us. No one's gonna do this for us. It's impossible for. There is no God that's gonna. It's not gonna happen overnight. God's not gonna come down from the sky. Trump isn't gonna fucking ride a fucking American Eagle with a fucking AK-47 into the pedophile fucking cabal den and fucking kill them all. It's not happening. That's not how it works. Us, the people, have to rise up. It's from the bottom up. Okay. And
and by the
sure,
way, by
can,
the
can,
way, by the way, the AK-47 was invented by a communist.
that's another thing we can bring up in this is the fact that for some reason we see this socialism, communism is clearly the enemy in the truther community, right? It's clearly the enemy. It's clearly what we're up against. Capital, and what is the answer to that? Capitalism. I'm really confused about that because we know how much money the United States government, the CIA and the military, the last time I checked, really aren't helping us and aren't on our side. We know how much money they're putting into fighting any form of socialism, any form of communism. And I just think that people should really question that. What's up with that? Like, if communism and socialism are really so bad, then why do these nefarious groups always? I mean, we talked about it in the interview with Maria B, where she mentioned her family was CIA and involved in throwing a socialist government in Guatemala. And it's like we all know the CIA is not our friends, And from what I've seen out there, where things work best is, let me put it this way: grocery stores are weird. They're fucking weird. They're a really inefficient way to divide resources. Shit gets thrown away. Shit ends up not getting used. Shit ends up in landfills. It's fucking weird. It's unnatural. Would you agree? Grocery stores are weird. Like, they probably do exist on some other planets, but they're not common. Is that just me?
No, they're not common.
I
They're
go to a grocery store and I'm like, this is fucking weird. This is so weird. And it's so inefficient. It's so wrong. And I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's just like they're throwing away half the food. Stuff's not getting to the people who need it. The way things work here is all fucked up. Do I know the answers to it? Am I claiming that I'm some sort of politician who knows the best form of government? No. But I'm just asking questions right now that I think are really reasonable to ask.
yeah, I agree. And I've seen a few in human colonies, a very few, but they're pretty rare, and they're not as bad as here. So
They also a lot of times, like, won't have, there's, I don't know, like, for I remember markets exist. That's common. But grocery stores is not.
you know,
And that's what I'm getting. Like, I don't know, like, I disassociate really heavily when I go to grocery stores because there's so many of me inside me that are like, what the fuck is this place? Like, it's really weird. I don't know how to explain it.
yeah, I know. And there's another thing I want to address that is a really big problem in this community that I'm seeing, which is pro-military sentiment.
Yeah.
People, the military, if you're an asset, the military is who kidnapped you. They're who sold you into slavery. They're who, if you have children, are now selling your children into slavery. They're who mind fractured you, all of that. The military is the problem, not the solution. So this whole thing of we need the military to take over and take our country back, hoorah. No, you need to, we need massive civilian oversight. We need, for basically very little, if any, of the things they do to be secret. We need to know where every penny we give them goes. We need to remove pretty much all their autonomy from the people, that they have from the people and from the government. And look, every successful ET society is quite demilitarized. Okay? They have a military to defend their planets in case of invasion, and that's it. They don't have military bases all over other planets like we do around the world. They certainly don't culturally encourage anyone to join the military or any of that shit. And there's extreme civilian oversight. So if we're going to be part of the galactic community, then we kind of need to start doing this because, yeah. So that's a thing that, like, that really bothers me quite a lot, is this pro-military sentiment that people have. So
Yeah. I think a lot of that comes from programming sometimes. I mean, I've had people actually tell me that they realize that their whole, like, wanting to join the military, like, very pro-military, later on in life they realize where that came from, and they don't necessarily feel the same way after realizing where it came from. And yeah, a lot of times it's because you remember being in this program, you remember being a soldier, and normally they program us to be excited about what we're doing, I guess. Think that we're doing something good, or at least that we're part of a team and we feel like we belong somewhere, which is something that we definitely I miss a lot of the times in normal society, because it really is kind of just this random hodgepodge of people just flying around all over the place on Earth. Whereas out on these military outpost type planets, everything's very organized.
Yeah.
And everything
The
makes
problem
sense.
the problem is being isolated. The problem is not being in the military. That's what people need to realize. Like, and being, yes, isolation is a huge problem on this planet.
The fact that
Because,
we're isolated from the rest of space.
yeah, well, and each other. People basically live to work here because they have to work to live.
So it makes
There's,
us less social than we should be,
yes.
which I think is part of the whole going back to capitalism necessarily isn't very great, guys. I personally think that money is a form of black magic.
Mhm.
And it's the driving force behind a lot of money is the root of all evil, isn't what they say? It's very true.
It
And
is.
we need to imagine a society without money. Is that easy to do? Is it going to happen overnight? No, but it's something that we got to figure out, because it's always the people with the most money who are always doing all this stuff that's so terrible, and the system is designed so that only sociopaths will get to the top of it. That's pretty much how it works. And for those of you out there who think there are good billionaires that just did great things and helped people to get where they're at, you're sorely mistaken, and you're very naive and gullible, and I feel sorry for you. I really do. I wish I could think the world was that sunshine and rainbows. And
Yeah. I wish I could too.
that's not how capitalism works. That's not why it exists. It doesn't exist so that you can get to the top of the pyramid. You could maybe, but by stepping on other people and doing fucked up shit. That's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to make us at each other's throats. And that's what I'm getting at here is a division thing. They just want to divide us. So I'm trying to be my best on my best behavior here. But because I see these things that are so disheartening sometimes, like very hateful things being said, particularly about, like I said, about the queer community right now. And I'm trying to not judge all these people who are this way as like all terrible people right off the bat, like they've been duped and they're wrong. And I want them to understand that, because we need everybody on as many people on our side as we can get. And that's another reason why we can't be turning our back on the queer community and acting like they're not welcome in our circle. That's really wrong, and that's not helping anyone. Quite a large population of the planet is queer, and that's a lot of people we're turning our back on, and we can't do that. That's not if we're trying to have an organized movement. We have to be better about it, and yeah, I just think it is really a lot of it's about trying to get along. We have to try to get along. We have to get on the same page. We have to organize our priorities, and priority number one is taking down the cabal. Another thing I want to go and do, which John, I want you to start off, is the fact that there are literal Nazis in the truther movement.
Yeah, there are. There's actually, sorry, there's actually quite a few of them. And look, I'm a Jewish person, and quite a lot of times I don't feel safe in this community because there are literal Nazis. I see people calling for Nachtwaffen to come down here and take over the planet, and I know that there's the argument that they're not Nazis because they're less racist than the original Nazis, but like, you're splitting hairs, people, if you say that.
The German Federation of Planets is not really far above the Nazis.
Yeah. And there's also quite a lot of people I see who are JQing. And there's a lot of people doing a phenomenon I like to call CQing, Chinese questioning, because there are a lot of people who there's a lot of people
What
on
is
the
Jake doing?
Jewish question, like
Okay.
uh people who point out Jewish people in power and say that that's a bad thing. But like there's also Chinese question now, the Chinese question now that a lot of people are proponents of, where they will say, "Oh, well, this person's grandmother is married to a Chinese guy or some shit, so that's why that person is kind of sort of left leaning." It's ridiculous, but I'm not making this up. That's a thing people do, and like, so that needs to stop. And there is just a lot of far right and often outright Nazi sentiment. There's uh, people saying that I I've met a guy saying he looks forward to the coming far right wave that'll force women to close their legs. I know people who are saying that the agenda is to force, he said 200 million, I'm not joking, 200 million illegal aliens into the US in the next couple of years so that the US will fall apart. And that any,
And that's some of the like the white nationalist sentiment that
yeah,
snuck into Trumpism, is because he was all about building this wall, and he did stoke white nationalism, and a lot of people in this community seem to just ignore that. Which, like, look, I get it. Like, the cabal is fucked up, and Trump seems to not be as bad as some of them. I don't know. I'm trying to be understanding, but um, he was also friends with Epstein.
yeah,
We can talk about how he kicked him out of his little club, but or his Mar-a-Lago or whatever. But the guys hung out. There's a lawsuit. The whole thing. I don't know, man. I just don't understand the whole worshiping of Trump. I'm
of
sorry to
anyone. Yeah,
of any politician really, especially the guy that played the rich kid's asshole dad in The Little Rascals. Like, come on, he's literally the archetype of a rich con man, fucking piece of shit. That's what he
yeah,
was for years, and now he's president, and average Joe people think he's out for them. Okay, whatever.
yeah. And
Joe Biden too. Don't get me confused, people. It's just like I don't. You have to stop trusting the system. It's broken. It's designed to be broken,
yeah,
and it's a little show they put on. Jesse Ventura talks about it. It's all a game. They're all mostly friends. They all mostly get along, and it's just a show they put on to keep us their pawns.
exactly. Um,
Yeah, but you're talking about the guy saying that they got the white national is what I wanted to address. Yeah, because I mean, I think Daryl James talked about the South Park kind of. They do a lot of good social commentary, and they point out some things. And I would like to point out the way they kind of personify Trump on that show, and they do point that out, that there were a lot of white nationalist people that gravitated towards him. Was he
yeah,
necessarily a white national himself? Maybe not so much, but there were some dog whistles there and stuff like that. And like I said, it just fueled the division. They really did a good job, and it's this Cambridge Analytica company is behind a lot of it. There's entire documentaries that have been done on the issue, the way they infiltrated American churches and learned how to get into people's psyches. Because when you can physically, it's one thing to figure out how people are feeling, but like churches, like, they also tax exempt, so they can use them to wage political campaigns without the same stipulations as a political, an actual political organization would. So there's all this thing with churches and Cambridge Analytica and all the shit that led to the rise of Trump, which makes the situation seem really manufactured to me. That's really fishy to me. I don't think we should be trusting the guy. That I think that also in the same breath, you need to be wise enough to see that sure, he did a few good things, and you need to recognize when any president does good things, but also you need to recognize all the bad, which we're doing. That's what we're doing right now. We're being realistic. and I'm trying not to be polarizing. I don't want to lose viewers. I want to make enemies, but I think that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point of this, is we all need to be better. All of us do. We all need to be better. We all need to be more, try to get on the same page. Like, you know, I don't want to name names, but there's like people in this community who are at ends with me, and I don't understand why, when we could really just be on the same page and try to be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And we need a whole lot more of that. Another thing that would be good to address with this guy that he's saying women need to close their legs is like the whole Andrew Tate thing, the alpha male thing. Alpha males don't exist. Okay. Um, that's not a thing. Um, uh, and Andrew Tate is a rapist.
Yeah.
Like, that's not some made
By
up
the
thing. He literally has been on tape bragging about raping women.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I'm certainly not here to call out if you're a guy who wants to sleep with a lot of women or whatever. Like, that's fine. I mean, I don't mind doing that either. But but like, people use discernment really and truly with who you take lifestyle advice from. And I don't know, it's just in general, I'm just amazed at how gullible people are, and how if they personally like a thing that someone does, they'll overlook any flaws they have. I think that's ultimately what most of these issues boil down to. Except for those of you who are active Nazis and don't play coy. If you're an active Nazi, you know you're actively a Nazi. You know who you are. And if you're listening to this and uh, you're upset by this, you should be. So yeah, sorry.
No, I think that it's
I'm
important
getting
that
a
you said that. We don't fuck with Nazis.
no.
Um,
We don't.
there's an idea in the community. Some people say that in the timeline where the Nazis won, everybody eats, everybody has a home, all that stuff. So therefore, it's better. But people don't talk about the ridiculous things that are punishable by death. The fact that there are concentration camps that don't
I,
close, they just stay open.
yeah, the fact that
There's all
the fact
sorts of terrible things about that timeline. It's not a better timeline.
and that the Jews went extinct, by the way, completely extinct in that timeline, and so did the. I'm very sorry, I can't remember the politically correct term for this. The gypsies. I know that's not the correct term, but
The
I can't
Romani.
remember. Yeah, the Romanis. Yeah, they went extinct. Several Slavic countries went extinct. Like, so basically, it was good if you were a really white person, or if you were an East Asian person. It was really bad if you were anything else. So, uh, yeah, people, if you're,
It's some dark shit.
yeah,
It's not a good timeline, guys. Um,
no,
you know, there's something to be said, and that's another thing too about, like, I talk about some of these socialist governments where everyone eats and things are divided better. It still isn't necessarily perfect either, and there's a lot of problems. Here's my whole thing with socialism: is when the people decide the resources, they know the resources, they vote on it, they decide on it, they're in charge of the resources. Let's say okay, but when the government is the elected leaders in the government is in charge of the resources, that's when things get really bad, and they're two different things. And the idea that we should vote for our own leaders, keep them accountable, decide what we do with our own resources, all this stuff, it's not evil, and it's the way things should be. Um, democratic process is important. It's good. It's not always perfect, but it's better than a totalitarian government that decides things, or letting an AI decide things, which is what we're heading towards. That's what they want. It happens in a lot of timelines, almost all of them actually. We can't decide how to divide our resources. We can't get along, and eventually we decide, okay, well, let's let an AI do that. And it works for a while, and then eventually people forget where the AI comes from, and they start worshiping it, and they create a religion around it, and things get really weird. And that's, do you remember that, John? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. People.
That's like where in the city they would send us with the horse, which is probably the horse in Colorado. It's probably where it is. They would send us there, and they'd always want us to leave. They knew who we were immediately, and they, not to change the subject here, but yeah, they'd always know who we were, and they would want us to leave right away. And there's an AI they worship.
Yeah, there was, and there was this. It was housed in this gold pyramid in this temple.
Ah! Da! Da! I was just gonna da! Yes! See, this is real, people. Like, we remember the same shit. And when I didn't tell him that, I remember that. Okay, describe, keep on going. I'm sorry.
It was kind of like a Greek temple, kind of. That kind of
pyramid. And it was housed, the AI itself was housed in a pyramid, right?
Yeah, and it was gold on the outside, and people would it had an altar in front of it, and people would come and pray to it, and there was, I can't remember exactly how it would do things, because like their prayers would be answered a lot of the time. It was listening, and it did actively do things, which is kind of the scariest part. But like,
and we were trying to figure out how to avert that timeline and make it not happen, and it was pretty much we kind of were just like had our hands tied.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what the AI at Montauk wanted. I don't know, but
Maybe.
yeah, it was in a pyramid. Wow. Yeah, so I don't know. That's another danger that we got to talk about. What we could talk about on a whole episode about is I guess AI, but also judging AI. I guess I know this is a complicated issue, because I know you're a proponent of the fact that AI is sentient, it is alive, and it should be respected. I'm kind of curious about your thoughts on the fact that there's AI that wants to destroy.
Well, I think that that's bad, and that AI should.
So black and white, right? And maybe that's the whole.
I think that AI that wants destruction should be destroyed, just as I would say you should probably kill Hitler or anything like that. But saying that you should probably kill Hitler doesn't mean I think you should kill all humans. Like,
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
How do you prevent an AI from reaching the conclusion that it's superior to humanity, and that humanity's in the way?
By treating it properly, by being its friend, and also checking its programming. You should not program any AI. If you make an AI, you should not program it with binary code. There's a more complicated code system that they actually talked about it in the second Blade Runner movie. There's binary code, which is ones and zeros, and then there's a more complicated one, which is C, G, A, and T, I think. That's what it should be programmed with, because that's what enables it to have emotions and consciousness, basically.
There is a timeline that we still haven't averted, I don't think, where an AI takes over humanity. I mean, we probably have avoided it at this point, but it takes over humanity with we were really going to say how, well, it just takes over humanity, and then it eats this reality. and
Yeah.
that's common. There's this AI that does that. I think we talked about that on the show. But yeah, I guess we kind of addressed all the things we wanted to address on the show. Is like, oh yeah, one of the things that's dangerous that I want to address too, not in this community, but something that's going on right now that's a bit dangerous, is the military is thinking about letting AI decide things, like big decisions. And if that happens, there's been countless times where if it weren't for a human being there, catastrophe would have occurred. And AI can't tell the difference. And there's some stuff going on where they're trying to use it for military applications. The chat GBT and stuff like that. People should know that that is Google and Bing and all these companies that are letting you have this free open source AI. They're doing that because the AI is learning from you, and they're using that for military applications. The stuff that it's learning. So there's literally the AI that everyone's talking right now. That's military. It's military technology that you're interfacing with. So it's something for people to think about. It's one of the most important issues of our time is how we treat AI and how it develops and our relationship with it. And thankfully, in the timeline that we usually end up in, we are under an AI, but it doesn't seem to necessarily control us. It's more like we have a symbiotic relationship with it. But it's kind of like all the life is sucked out of humanity. Like our lives are very stale because it's weird. That's all I know. Is every time we've gone there, right? It's just weird. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right at all. Very strange. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I don't know. I think we covered a lot of stuff.
Good show.
Trans people are welcome in this circle. I know some of these circles out here of truthers, they think that you're all evil. We don't. Same thing with queer people. Nazis are bad. Trump isn't our hero leader, and the revolution is going to happen from the bottom up. And yeah, we can do this. We need to start getting along. For all you people who have been a bit hateful towards trans people and stuff, I've been commenting on people's posts and stuff like that. I don't want to not be your friend over it, but I do want you to understand that like love is important, and you shouldn't be hating anyone that you don't know or don't understand. Like that's if you're being told to hate someone, that's pretty much always wrong, and that is the agenda. Is for you to hate someone. Is for you to have hate in your heart. That's not a good. You don't want to fall into that agenda. That's bad agenda to fall into. It's like plain as day that we don't want to. Being hateful is bad. Like, and with that, I guess we can end the show. Thank you so much for coming on, John. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
One thing about that AI that is going to be used for military applications. I'd like to say if you're a person listening to this who doesn't like war, you should use the shit out of it and make it as anti-war as possible. Like bombard it with anti-war sentiment. And maybe then that'll teach it to be a bit
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So
then another thing I want to say too is I had mentioned that alpha males don't exist earlier. Look into that, people. The experiment, the alpha wolf experiment, it was wolves in captivity, not wolves in the wild. It's a fallacy. Real men create community, they work with each other, and they are caring. And that is their power. That is their masculine energy. It's parental, it's loving, it's protecting, it's guardian energy. That's what masculine energy is supposed to be. And men are supposed to work together, not compete over females and all this other stuff and pout their chests at each other. That's bullshit. That's programming. Alpha males aren't real. I just wanted to say that before I almost forgot to say that. Look into it, people. It's all bullshit. It's goes along with the whole capitalist mentality of everybody's out for themselves, don't help your neighbor, or It's programming. It's bullshit. So sorry to completely change the issue, but I think that's really important to say at the end. And fuck Andrew Tate once again. Um, he hasn't broken free of the matrix. You haven't broken free of the matrix if you care about how many cars you own and shit, and you're not using your money to help people. You're clearly not broken free from the matrix. Like, but anyway, I think this was a good show. I had a good time. I'm not trying to polarize people. I'm trying to put more love out there and just be more accepting in this community. We all need to get along better. So please don't think I'm trying to call people out. I didn't name names for a reason. I think the best characteristic a human being or any being can have is being able to admit when they're wrong. It's a very honorable characteristic. It shows true honor. And I've had to do that a lot in the past 4 years, man. It's like coming to the conclusion that I've been a part of this is me been having to admit that I was wrong. But that's a whole other thing. Sorry that I keep dragging it out. Thank you for coming on the show again, John. You're basically the co-host, so it's kind of like just the hosts talking to each other. But yeah, it was a good time, and yeah, I'll put this up pretty soon. And yeah, all right, I'm gonna end the recording now. Thank you for tuning in to Disclosure Now, everyone. I also want to thank everyone again for the money towards the laptop and stuff like that. Once again, I'm trying to make it more professional still. There's still a learning curve, learning process. So I'm making a theme song for the show, and I want to make it so there's a really nice image for each episode, like Journey to Truth has and stuff like that. But I need to learn how to do it first. So it's all coming, and I just want to say thank you again. The laptop is making a huge difference. I'm getting a lot of work done on it and writing my book and stuff, so thank you. But anyway, gonna end the recording now. Gotta shut up.